And guess what piece that was for TCU? It was Quentin Johnston. As soon as Kendre Miller was not available in this game as the running back, there was one thing that TCU was going to be able to rely on, and that was their best player on offense, which is Quentin Johnston. And guess what Georgia did? Took him away. I thought that the coverage was brilliant on Quentin Johnston. I thought that the plan was brilliant. Give Kirby Smart a lot of credit for what they do, because it was very clear that Johnston was not going to be the reason TCU was going to move the ball up and down the field. Every single time he split out, he was double covered. He was either double covered or there was a safety over top. They understood how to play defense in a big environment against a really good player. TCU did not. They did not understand how to adjust with their 3-3-5 stack defense against Brock Bowers. So that was very apparent. The inexperience from the TCU coaching staff, in particular on the defensive side, and the experience from the Georgia coaching staff. And this is why Georgia is now running college football, is because they know how to do this, and they do it extremely well. Next observation from this game is, before we talk about Stetson Bennett, because that's a more overarching conversation, did anyone else realize it was 59-7 when Kirby's going for it on fourth down and blitzing Max Duggan and like coming after him? And I was like, man, this is ruthless from Kirby Smart. And part of me is like, man, is this really, like, is this necessary? Do you really need to do this? And then, you know what? Like, it's a game. So you've got to go out there and play the game. If they're going to run their offense out there and you're going to run your defense out there, then it's like, hey, like, call a defense. This is not an all-star game. This is not a Pro Bowl. So Kirby's under no obligation to call the dogs off. No pun intended. And I think Sonny Dykes would probably agree with me on that. You know, he's got backups in on offense when he goes for it on fourth down. So it's like, listen, if you can't stop our backups, that's not my problem if you're Kirby Smart. And listen, I'm okay with that. I, generally speaking, don't mind guys just playing to the zeros. Now, if you're, playing an FCS team or rubbing it in some sort of way, I don't love that. But listen, this is a national championship game. In a lot of respects, Kirby wasn't trying to embarrass TCU, and this wasn't anything about his hatred or vitriol for Sonny Dykes and the Horned Frogs. This was a moment in time, that fourth quarter, to put the entire sport on notice that we run the sport now. We run college football. If nothing else, that's what Kirby was saying in that moment. It's that we don't care what the score is. We don't care what the week of the season is. We don't care what environment we're in. We run the sport. And if you're going to be on the field with us, you better buckle up. You better buckle up. Now, there's some teams that can do that, right? And they can buckle up and play a great game against them. We saw it the previous week with Ohio State. But that's the message that he was sending. And I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that at all. Now, do I love seeing Max Duggan get blitzed when he's down 59-7? No, I don't love it. Listen, you're talking to a guy that got blitzed when we were down, I think it was like 70-3 in a Big 12 championship game to that great Texas team that won a national championship. And that ended my career, by the way. I got concussed. I wound up in the hospital. Great. I mean, I was out there to compete. What was Texas supposed to do? Take it easy on us? Isn't that more embarrassing? I mean, 70-3 is pretty embarrassing. I'm lucky I don't remember it. So thank you very much. But, that's kind of the nature of the game. Texas was sending a message to USC that day in 2005. And I think Kirby Smart in Georgia, they were sending a message to all of college football. Georgia runs college football now. They have been the best team in college football for 2 straight years. Back-to-back national championships. Kirby Smart and Georgia have passed Alabama. Alabama's current run is the best run that we've ever seen in college football. I don't think that we're going to see it equaled. Having said that, if you take more of a micro outlook of what we're seeing in the last 18, 19 months in college football, Georgia is the preeminent program in the sport now. They run the sport. Everybody's chasing the Georgia Bulldogs. And in a lot of ways, that fourth quarter and those decisions, that was Kirby announcing that to the world, to college football. We run the sport. You come out here against the Dogs, you better buckle up. If you beat us, we'll tip our caps. But we're not going to lay down and we're not going to take it easy on you. Why? Because we run the sport. And I agree with them. And they do. And for the better part of the year, if we're honest with ourselves, and you heard me talk about it there in September, we kind of knew Georgia was going to be this team pretty early after their win against Oregon, after their win against South Carolina, which, by the way, in hindsight, looks even better with the way South Carolina finished the season with wins over, what was it, Clemson and Tennessee. I think it's pretty obvious, and this is going to ruffle some feathers, in particular in Ann Arbor, but our assumption most of the year was that there were three teams that were the best teams in college football: Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama. Now, Tennessee and LSU beat Alabama, and Michigan beat Ohio State. And so you've got to give those teams a ton of credit. And if Tennessee could have taken care of business against South Carolina, Tennessee would have been in the playoff. All right? Even after losing in Athens to the Georgia Bulldogs. But if we're really looking at this and we say to ourselves, listen, Michigan probably has a bit of an outlier game against Ohio State. Now, they're going to cry foul on this opinion, but they were an underdog for a reason, okay? And then we saw Ohio State when they were actually playing well and what they were able to do against Georgia. Now, they didn't beat Georgia, and that's why Georgia is running the sport right now. But these teams, and I guess, let's even include Michigan, because their worst game obviously happens in the semifinal. There's not a lot of teams that can even play with Georgia when they play like they did on Monday night. That's the level that they're at. Like, this Bama team probably doesn't beat this Georgia team this year. This is the best team in college football. They have replaced Bama as the benchmark. They are the benchmark. And everyone else is chasing them. Everybody, from Ohio State to Bama themselves, to Michigan, to TCU, to everybody else. Everybody is chasing the Georgia Bulldogs.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here. College Football on Fox.